Good morning. Today is the August 24th Finance Committee presentation on staffing and something else, correct? And IT. Duh. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to you. George, just as a reminder to everybody, we're being recorded, so please use your microphones. And that. Thanks, George.
Thank you. Good morning. To just kick things off, the first part of the slide deck is just a snapshot of the Information Systems Department. This is our current staffing. There's 21 total, including me, in the Information Systems Department, with a salaries and personnel cost of just over $3 million. This is a snapshot of equipment and software and other online services. Just a little bit of orientation. The column on the left represents equipment connected to our network. So later in the PowerPoint, I'm going to refer to 14,000 devices connected to our network. It's that column on the left that represents those 14,000 devices. And just a quick glance at it, you can see that we're still primarily Macs throughout the district at nearly 6,500 Macs, followed by Chromebooks. We have a growing number of Chromebooks that I'll show you. But there's things on here that people don't think about, such as voice over IP phones and the security equipment throughout the district.
Excuse me 1 second, George.
Certainly.
Do we have this presentation?
It was on sent to me. I thought it was part of Megan's last night too. If you can.
My apologies. So
Okay.
what do you want me to do?
Send it to me, I can drop it in Board Docs.
Right now?
Yes. Please.
Okay.
Sorry.
I just.
Yeah, but I'm paging through. I'm thinking we'd
I-
flip the order of the presentation, so I thought it was at the
I was
end.
just actually getting ready to email him or text him and say.
Sorry, we're going to have a technology
Yeah.
delay here.
Okay, so, all right, so back to the equipment, software, and online services snapshot. As I mentioned, the column on the left represents equipment connected to our network, and when I speak about 14,000 devices later in the PowerPoint, that's the list that I'm referring to. On the right are other technology that we support that's not necessarily connected to the network. For example, you can see we have over 200 interactive projectors, close to 400 other projector systems. We have the student computer applications. We're now at 150, and you can see the other applications that we're supporting. This is just a visual. It just illustrates that we have a growing number of Chromebooks in the district. Not terribly exciting in terms of data illustrations, but in the last 2 years, we've added 1,000 Chromebooks to our instructional student fleet. And we've seen a slight decrease in the number of MacBooks. And we have had a small uptick in iPad, iPod technology. Primarily, we're seeing a lot of iPods being purchased for the use with like small programming and robotic systems used at the elementary level, as an example. Continuing with the snapshot, this is our tickets, our help desk tickets. We ask users to submit help desk tickets when they have a need. 2 years ago, we had over 11,000 tickets submitted to the help desk system. Last year, we had again close to 11,000 tickets, just under 11,000. And from July 1st to March 31st of this year, we've had nearly 9,300 tickets. Of those tickets, to date, or to March 31st, nearly 600 of those tickets were to purchase equipment. All the technology purchases go through my office for vetting purposes.
George, can you
Yes.
just talk a minute about, so Chromebooks are considerably less expensive than MacBooks, correct?
They are. We can purchase nearly 4 Chromebooks to the MacBook.
And can Chromebooks run much the same software as the MacBooks, or I know there are some differences in its flexibility, but I'm thinking about all the educational software that we have, all the textbook software.
I don't want to say it's a one-for-one, but for example, students using Google Drive, you wouldn't see a difference between a Mac and a Chromebook. Students using anything online, I don't think you would see much of a difference there because we've standardized on the Chrome browser on the Mac. So I don't think you would see a lot of differences there. But there are still apps that get installed on the Mac that we don't have a one-to-one comparison on the Chromebook. For example, drawing apps. Like if there's like some of your Adobe products, we don't have a one-to-one on the Chromebook yet for that. But the use of a Chromebook for online text and for many of the things that students are doing now, there's a likeness or an equal. I think the oldest example that we see of that is it was actually middle school social studies who first implemented the use of an online textbook, History Alive, and they've successfully used that. To my knowledge, they've successfully used that now for. I was when Barbara Giorgio was here, so
Wow,
was that
yeah.
5 years,
Yeah.
five or more years ago?
I guess the reason for my question is the technology getting to the point where we could replace the one-to-one in the high schools with Chromebooks rather than MacBooks? I know the high school kids wouldn't be happy because the MacBooks are just so much better than the Chromebooks, but I don't know whether the Chromebooks suit our needs or not.
I think it would require considerably more testing at the high school level because the students are using apps that are installed like the Adobe products, like Eclipse, for example, for coding. So I think they're relying more on that Mac environment than what I've seen at the middle school. I do know that as we get requests for using Chromebooks at the middle school, we try to vet that as much as possible. That's why the art example is fresh in my mind. But I would recommend that be looked at very carefully before we say let's move from Macs to Chromebooks.
We are, one of the things we are doing in preparation for the third middle school is taking a look at the 5 through 8 program. And one of the questions that will be put before the committee is, should we go to a one-to-one in the middle schools, really to reduce the amount of textbooks we're having kids walk back and forth with. And that's one of the questions that will be put to the, if we do, what device would be best for the middle school? And since we've already got to start
Right.
with Chromebooks, it almost seems like a natural, but we want to put that as part of the thinking.
Moving on. So this is a good illustration of data. This is our tickets, and you can see that large peak there. That large peak is fundamentally August through October. That is our busiest time. From September 1st through October 31st, 2 months, we're receiving approximately 75 tickets per business day for about 1,600 tickets per month during that 2-month period. So it's an extremely busy time for the department, and you can see that as we go from a summer employee population to full staffing to students returning. Continuing with the department snapshot, this is equipment that we've repaired. If you recall, it was about 3 years ago that we actually said we were going to bring all of our repairs in-house and stop sending them out. So it's 16-17, we had a total of 565 repairs, and in 17-18 we had a total of 592, and July 1st through March 31st we've had 470 repairs so far. And again, just taking a very, very, very conservative approach to this, if we were to take out the day to ship equipment out and the day to receive equipment, this year we've returned equipment back into the classroom 940 days sooner, so that teachers have fuller carts to draw from in order to use equipment by bringing maintenance back in-house.
George, that's great, because that's really, having the equipment and having it working is really the key. But I don't understand why bringing the repairs in-house would reduce the number of repairs.
No, I don't think it's reduced the number of repairs, it's reduced the number of days that the repairs
but it's also reduced, maybe that's not what's reduced the number of repairs, but the number of repairs has dropped from...
But you're not looking at a full year.
Well, that's true, I'm not looking at a full year.
Yeah, that's
probably the difference, okay.
Yeah, I would say we're on track for over 500 again. We see a large number at the end of the year, as equipment is more closely inspected. And for example, we collect all the high school students' laptops at the end of the year, and we go through them and look for what needs to be repaired in preparation for the following year. So this will go up. This is annually I run a survey for it's open to all district employees regarding the quality of service that they're receiving from the Information Systems Department. And this is just one of a series of questions, but I thought it was important in terms of a snapshot of the department. If you look at this, you'll see that there's 6 groups of columns, and basically the question is, what do you think is most important? And it's interesting, people want service quick and they want it accurate. They don't want us to talk, they don't want us to explain it, they don't want anything after quick and accurate service. And that's basically how employees judge us. Can you fix it right the first time, and can you fix it quickly? After that, it kind of flatlines. So I just thought it was interesting that what it is that our users are looking for from the Information Services or Information Systems Department.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
On that chart, is it all students as well, or just employees?
Just employees.
Okay.
This is just employees.
Thank you.
And certainly not all employees fill this out. But this is the submission from last year. And this is just another question from that survey asking what the people overall think of the service that they're receiving from the Information Systems Department, and you can see that they strongly agree and agree. So a growing area for us in support is parents. We are getting more and more requests for assistance from parents, and you can see with Power School we have what we in the last couple of years we have all parents now using Power School because of the elementary parents being able to access the parent portal for information like transportation information. And that starts off presently we have over 10,000 accounts in Power School. We move those accounts over to Blackboard and the final site for parents, and so we're really talking about over 30,000 accounts for parents that we're managing. Now we're certainly not handling all 30,000, but because of those accounts we're seeing an increase in the amount of requests from parents for assistance. So we have a growing customer base that we didn't have previously. So now it's not only employees, not only is it students, but now we're managing parents more. So I want to make sure that I share that growing need.
Do the parents have individual accounts, or do the families have an account?
No, the parents have individual accounts.
So that's why the number is higher than the number of students that you have?
Correct. Okay, so moving on to the budget. So you're probably familiar with this, the budget donut. from the previous years. And like previous years, the lion's share of the IS department budget goes to instructional computers and one-to-one. We have a larger number in replacement equipment this year, and I'll explain that. And then I will continue to highlight other areas of the budget based off of their size. So moving on, as I mentioned, the lion's share of the budget goes to the instructional computers and one-to-one. Now, this varies year to year. It depends on how much equipment needs to be refreshed by level. So this particular year, we're seeing a larger number of computers that need to be refreshed at the elementary level as opposed to the middle school level. And the high schools remain relatively the same, and that's because of the one-to-one program. To continue to break those numbers down further, so at the high schools, we're purchasing 700 MacBooks, and then you can see that there's the laptop insurance costs, the covers, and the copiers that the students use for printing. And then at the middle school, you can see the breakdown of equipment. And at the elementary level, you can see there we're replacing 676 MacBooks, iMacs, and Chromebooks. We have been purchasing a reserve of student MacBooks, so as we get additional students registering towards the beginning of the school year, we're able to deploy those and fill any necessary ratio gaps.
You have 676 MacBooks in the elementary school. How many elementary school children do we have?
I don't have that number in front of me.
3,000?
But this is only what needs to be refreshed this year. So not all MacBooks will be refreshed at the elementary level, but only this is what's going out of warranty at this point.
So, and these are not the teachers' MacBooks, these are the student use.
Correct. The teachers are the last row there. You can see that we're replacing 222 teacher MacBooks.
And are we still doing the pick your device kind of? Weren't we doing something with, there was a choice of which device you wanted? Did you want a MacBook? Did you want a phone? Did you want a?
We do that for the administrators.
Oh, okay.
Continuing on, so as I mentioned, our budget for replacement equipment is higher this year, and that is because we are replacing all the administrators' Windows computers. We are presently running laptops that are heading towards 5 years old, and they are running Windows 10. I'm sorry, running Windows 7. Windows 7 will no longer be supported January 2020. So we're already less than a year away from the current operating system that we're using no longer being supported by Microsoft. So that we actually timed this really well. We knew that we had X number of years for Windows 7, and we knew that our laptops were aging, and we actually, by design, planned that so that we would refresh the computers and the operating system at the same time. So our forward thinking actually worked out in this particular case.
So
Yep.
some of our computers can just take the new operating system, right? Or no?
There are a couple one-offs out there like that were purchased newer, but the lion's share, and I'll show you those numbers, the lion's share are all the same vintage.
And the operating systems can't be updated?
Well, the machines themselves are aging out too. So the machines themselves are, I believe we're in our fourth year. We would be going into a fifth year and then trying to update those to Windows 10. So rather than trying to update the operating system on older equipment and then replacing the equipment in the following year, we're doing it at the same time. So just to break that number down a little bit, so what does that buy us? So we're anticipating needing to purchase 134 desktops, 261 14-inch laptops, USB-C docks. So when we're talking about a dock, we're talking about a docking station. So what you would see a lot around the district is a monitor connected to a stand, and a user would walk up and they would snap their laptop down into the dock. Well, that technology has gone away, and the docks that we currently have are probably over 10 years old. Dell has kept that technology around for a long time, from platform to platform, but the industry has finally moved away from it and is now to this USB-C. And that's a picture there on the right of what a USB-C dongle looks like. So we're in a position now where we have to replace the docks. But as I mentioned, they've had a long run. I think we've had the current docks for over a decade. But there is the additional cost because we have to replace the docks. And with that, there's certainly the cables, and then there's additional monitor stands, and we're replacing some other peripherals.
Why do we need 134 desktops? Like, who uses desktops anymore? Don't people, I mean, I would think most people don't just plug their laptop into a dock and even use two screens or...
Well, we do have a number of employees who do not travel and who do not take laptops with them at the end of the day. So they use, we supply them with a desktop, which is, as you can see, $200 cheaper. In addition to that, I don't have to, like, if you don't need to travel with your device, I don't want you traveling with your device. Because now it's not going to get broken. If it's dropped, it's not going to get stolen. So if we ask the question, do you need to travel? Because it reduces a number of risk if they don't need to travel with it. Continuing on with hardware and software maintenance, this is just a highlight of some of the costs that are in this category of the budget. And you've probably seen some of these things in the past. For example, Adobe Creative Cloud that students use. The Apple Client Management product is what we use to manage all the Apple devices throughout the district. And you're familiar with Cisco SmartNet. That's our maintenance and our warranty and our software updates for network equipment. Microsoft, for example, PowerSchool. So these are things that you've probably seen in our budget, or my budget presentation in the past. Outsourced services. So this year we need to update Kronos. Kronos is running legacy Flash, which we need to upgrade and move away from. The data center air conditioning system needs to be replaced. That is also legacy at this point, and we're being told by our maintenance service that parts for our current HVAC service are becoming scarce and difficult to find. And then we're also looking to hire help this summer with the Windows 10 deployment. Given the number of devices and the individual customization of many of those devices, we're looking to bring some additional help on board.
And George, the data center HVAC replacement, why is that in your budget and not in the maintenance budget?
Well, it certainly could be in the maintenance budget. It was just something that was on our radar that we wanted to ensure got looked at. I don't know that there's any reason that it would have to stay in my budget and not be in Jim's budget. I'm sure Jim would like that in his budget.
I'm just, and Jim, if you want to come and respond. But, I'm just curious, are there other maintenance, what I would consider maintenance issues being charged to your budget rather than?
The things that operation assist us regularly with things like UPS's uninterruptible power supplies and the emergency electric for that and the generators for that. So there's a lot that ops does to keep information systems throughout the district running. Like I said, I don't know from a budgetary point of view if it makes any difference whose budget it's in.
Well, it's directly attributable to the function of your operations for the DMAR, so it's not an operation of a building, it's specifically for to keep his servers and everything going, so I would think it would fall more under an IT, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, George, this is part of your obsolescence program, correct? I think the DMAR AC portion of it.
It is.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just putting on Suba's accounting hat, and just wondering about, you know, why it's coming from
I
where.
think it's because Jim's more operation building, George is specifically an AC for the units of the servers, which basically is the backbone of our
So
network.
any DMR in any building would be under your sort of jurisdiction rather than yours?
It's a very symbiotic relationship between operations and the Information Services Department.
So it doesn't matter what.
From my point of from my point of view, I just want to know the equipment's cool. From a budgetary standpoint, whatever Vic believes is the best route to go. So that's Vic's call.
Just to clarify, the HVAC equipment that's on the roof that serves the DMR, which is the main network hub of the school district, and there only is one DMR.
Oh, I thought you were
No, that would be either an MDR or an IDR, and this has more of just individual distribution. The DMR is the DMR, if you will. That's the core. That HVAC equipment was installed in 2006. It only serves the network room and the network equipment. Everything George said about obsolescence and the end of life on that HVAC equipment is 100% true. That's 13 years, so it's aged. One of the things about DMR and the network AC is dedicated to the network equipment. The network equipment actually has temperature gauges in it that alert technology staff if it's starting to overheat because they don't want that damage. It's my understanding that since it's been installed, technology has had the service contract specifically with the HVAC vendor, and they make sure all the preventive maintenance is done because it's a contained system for the DMR for the whole district.
Okay, thank you. Moving on. Security and compliance. This is a growing number too. And again, some of these things you've probably seen in the past are our endpoint, our antivirus people think of on individual computers is Sophos at nearly 40,000. Presidio Managed Services. This is the managed service that we send our logs to, and I'll show you an example of what they do in terms of security in the district. So that's a managed service as opposed to the iBoss web filter, which is for compliance with the Children's Internet Protection Act. And that's what filters students' access, employee access as well, to web content. In addition to the spam filter, which again you've probably heard me discuss in meetings like facilities and purchasing. In addition to security and compliance devices like that, we also look at COPA and FERPA online services compliance, as well as keeping an eye on confidential and sensitive data. So just to expand on the Presidio Managed Services and what they do, this is data from the last quarter of last year, and you really have to pause and look at the numbers that we're talking about here, because they're big, and it takes a little bit to really appreciate them. But said simply, our network is under constant attack. There is constant traffic at our doorway trying to either reconnoiter systems or penetrate systems, and it's Presidio that is looking at those traffic logs and helping us to identify what's good and what's bad and block what's necessary. So just as an example, in October of last year, you can see that we permitted over 1 million connections to the network, while we blocked nearly 48 million connections to our network within the United States. And then the column on the right just kind of breaks that out a little bit further. But just to give you a more granular example of what that looks like, this is an alert that we received a couple weeks ago. And this is an example that of an alert that we received from Presidio. And basically what this is saying is some miscreant in Hungary is trying to conduct reconnaissance and exploit PowerSchool. And so we get this type of alert. They say, are you okay with us blocking this traffic from Hungary? Yes, please block that traffic. So this type of activity goes on constantly. And it's Presidio that helps us to mitigate that. Continuing on, telecommunications, internet, fiber optic network. And I have in there some of the vendor names only so that to remind myself to start using them. Our fiber optic network, which connects all the buildings to the Deemer that we were discussing a little bit ago, is no longer Synesis but Crown Castle, and that's our annual cost for leasing that fiber. Our internet and DDoS mitigation services, formerly Level 3, now CenturyLink, and then school messenger service, which we're familiar with. Yes?
One quick question on the security. I'm sorry. On the security issue of the Hungarian invasion, how does that happen when the kids' laptops are at home? Is there any? How are they protected? Are they, if they're on a Wi-Fi at a different Wi-Fi network?
Sure, great question. So a student's laptop at home would have that endpoint security on it, that Sophos endpoint antivirus on it. And we also install the web filter on the laptops as well. So they have two pieces of security, the antivirus and the web filter. It's the student's activity that's generating traffic out, as opposed to this example that I showed you. This is someone trying to get in, but there is security on the student device as well at home.
All right, thanks.
Certainly. New initiatives. We're looking to install redundant routers for internet connection. We continue to try to reduce single points of failure. We have two initiatives related to the School Safety Task Force. We're looking at increasing our internet capacity so that we can permit access to Remind, which is the app, Remind app, which can be used for communications through personally owned mobile devices. Another initiative is using DocuSign for parental consent forms. We're hoping to reduce the amount of time it takes for parents to execute the COPA parental consent form, and us processing that so that we can permit students to use online services faster. We're also trying to reduce the number of accounts and passwords that students need in order to access those online resources through ClassLink. And then our last is called Optiv, which is another security service, and hiring Optiv to come in and do what's called a security strategy assessment. So just to expand upon that a little bit, Optiv would come in, identify critical services with cabinet level administrators, then identify threat profiles against K-12 and education, review our current security capabilities, and then align those things so that we have an actionable and prioritized roadmap for improving security in the district.
George, how are we doing
Yep.
with bandwidth in general in the buildings?
Normally fine. It does spike up a little bit at periods of time throughout the day, but right now we're okay. I do think we're going to have to continue to add bandwidth. I don't want to just throw a lot of bandwidth because it's expensive. But I do foresee that we're going to come back and we're going to need additional bandwidth in the future as more and more things go online.
And are you getting any complaints from buildings regarding that, or are they pretty much content with what's going on?
No, I have not received complaints from the buildings. If you ask the students, things are never fast enough.
Right.
But no, I have not received a complaint from a building saying internet's really slow. Just a highlight on training. We do a lot of training to keep up with the ever-changing landscape of technology. For example, we have analysts who go to the Data Summit, web accessibility, compliance training, and in addition to that, we conduct internal policy and procedure training. This is a diagram of the network. So just to try to tie some things together here, and you're going to hear more about this tomorrow, in fact, at the facilities and purchasing meeting. But what's in the DEMR, just to start there on the far left, is the very nerve center of the district's network. That's where we connect to the internet. That's where all the buildings connect to the district's data center, the DEMR. And that is the very core of our network where all of our servers live. And then it begins to spider out from there to 14 buildings. That's the distribution layer, to access closets and Wi-Fi connectivity. And that's how those 14,000 devices connect back. So they either connect to the Wi-Fi access points or the access switches in the closets, and then you can see where that connects back through. I mention that because the 5-year obsolescence plan, this coming year, we hope to replace the distribution layer switches, as well as the AC that we talked about, and the security cameras. So what we're talking about is next year we're going to replace that third column from the left in the buildings, and that's how the buildings are connected to the administration building. In 2021, we hope to replace the access layer switches, for example, in the admin building. And then the Kemp load balancer, which helps us with connectivity from the outside. And then we start to get into things like Harriton's projectors and set-top boxes. They haven't been replaced since the building opened, and are certainly starting to show their age. In 21-22, we have quite a bit of storage and disaster recovery servers that we hope to replace, the boardroom AV, as well as the set-top boxes in LM, projectors and set-top boxes in LM, which have not been replaced since the building opened. 22-23, the wireless network, again, just going back one, you can see that we presently have 692 wireless access points. For example, the one that's over my head. So we hope to replace that in 22-23. And then 23-24, we hope to replace the access layer switches. Again, I don't want to keep flipping back and forth, but you can match that up to that network diagram. And that wraps it up.
Great, thank you. Two quick questions, well, not quick, but two questions. One is, you have a 5-year obsolescence plan, but we also are going to have a significant increase in technology when the new middle school opens up. And, it would be good to see what your cost impact will be.
Sure.
As that occurs. And the timing of that. So I don't know if that's something you've already started working out, or, as you get to that, I think it would be important for us to see that.
Certainly. And some of the drivers around that will be, as an example, that additional fiber optic cost, as an example. Additional equipment, that's an easy one. Additional personnel is certainly another driver. But what we have been doing, and again, you're going to hear more about this tomorrow with facilities and purchasing, and the replacement of the core and firewall project, which I mentioned back in March. We have been building capacity into that for an additional building. So the equipment that we just approved for the purchase a month ago, we built into that capacity a new middle school. So we've been already building that capacity in.
Okay, but that's great. I would like to see if we can get a budget of what we're thinking that
Certainly.
impact on technology is going to be with the additional school. The other question, I've paged back to your little donut graph there.
Sure.
This is this year's, or this is the upcoming budget.
Correct.
Could we get a chart or the other presentations we've had is a comparison of what last year's was, what this year's is, where the cost increases are specifically.
Sure.
Sort of all in one spot, so that I can pick up one sheet and say, okay, the hardware, software, and maintenance is you're budgeting, $911,071 for next year. What was it this year?
Certainly.
And was there some specific one? If there's a big jump, a little description of the. So in one look you can see the budget.
Certainly.
So if we could get that, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have a question?
Diane, you mentioned something about the new building, so some of the IT costs will be part of the building project, the projectors and stuff like that, so that's going to be some of that's going to be built into the building project.
Right, but if we're going to, let's say we go to Chromebooks 1-to-1 in the
Right.
middle school, that's going to be.
Right, some of those other things will be different, but the infrastructure stuff will be built into the building project.
Okay, good. Anybody else? No. George, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I guess we're on to Megan with staffing? I'm sorry?
Switch up.
So, part two for this morning is focused on staffing costs for the 1920 school year. And as I like to do before talking about the actual cost is to remind all of us of the complexity of the organization that we're serving from a staffing standpoint. So sometimes we focus a lot on the number of students we have in our classrooms, but together with that, we're serving families, we're serving a community, and so exponentially, we provide a lot more service than just the day-to-day work that we do inside our classrooms. And that's across multiple locations and over a lot of property, which is also growing. Fundamental, though, to our mission is delivering the high-quality educational, co-curricular, and extracurricular experiences in a safe and welcoming environment. So some of the budget items not only, again, relate to the classroom, but the security measures that we have in place, the additional training that we have in place, we've been talking about at the board level a lot this year. So it's important to note those pieces as well. So the types of beyond the classroom services that we provide include our nutritional service system. I think these data points were reflected in other presentations, but I think it's helpful to reiterate some of them now when you talk about the scope. Over 3,000 meals a day. Our technology system, as George just explained, is incredibly robust, not just having a number of devices, but having to service all of those devices and make sure that our network is working 24/7. that just the help desk tickets alone, we field on a day-to-day basis is pretty remarkable. Our facility management system, again, beyond just the school day, we're looking at about 13,000 hours of scheduled use of district facilities by our community groups. So that doesn't just mean like, hey, come on in. It means that someone has to make sure that the doors are unlocked at the right times and then locked again at the right times, that the HVA system, HVA system, C, I missed the C. C, I was like, what am I missing? System is operating, that it's cleaned up afterwards, that it's cleaned beforehand, that the site is safe for use. So again, a lot goes into that work that is sort of behind the scenes. Our HR department, I think a highlight to note just in terms of volume, 12,000 applications were reviewed last year. That's a lot of not as much paperwork nowadays because that's an online system, but a lot of information to review.
Megan, just quickly,
Yes.
we have 1,000 students on free and reduced lunch?
Yep.
Wow.
11.
11 to 12%?
Yeah. Yep. So, again, to continue, I used to fit this all in one slide, but to highlight these areas in particular, because we'll be looking at some increases in staffing in these areas. Our transportation system, as Jim Lill discussed in his presentation, the magnitude of the number of daily trips as well as the locations that we send students to just to go to school, but then beyond that for field trips, for extracurricular activities. And that's an operation that's going on over 300 days of the year. Our health service system, I thought this data was interesting to share. In a little more detail, we're serving over 13,000 students when you include our non-public school and homeschool settings. The 44,000 student visits for illness, more than 8,000 for injury, and this is last year's final totals. You can see that there's not only an impact in the public school, but also non-public school students that are being served at a fairly high rate. So we also do screening services within the schools, and those our school nurses are responsible for that. And you'll see later we're recommending an increase in nursing services for next year, as well as additional drivers for next year. And our communication system is, a 24/7 operation at times, and one of the other things that we've added, which without adding additional staff, is to ensure that our website and materials are ADA compliant, and that is a lot of additional hours on our end to do that, which we feel is very important, but we do that with the staff that we currently have. So we're pleased we're able to do that. So as far as totals, the one that may be in front of you that I had that I did update this morning is that we do have 717 support staff. We had missed a group of staff when I included the numbers before, so that's updated as of this morning, and I'll make sure that the one that's posted is updated as well. So we have a number of employees, over 1,500 employees in district, and importantly, I think we do not subcontract very many services here in the district. Our transportation services, as an example, our nutritional services are all in-house, and we're one of the benefits of that, I think, is that we have employees that stay with us year over year that are committed and dedicated and are here to serve the community and our students. So I think that's a benefit of having those services in-house. But it is a difference between what we do and what other districts may do, across not only the region, but the state as well. So beyond the employees, which the full-time regular employees that we have coaches and activity sponsors who may also be employees, but often are individuals that are coming in to coach a team or support an activity. So we're managing those additional individuals, our seasonal employment, such as our summer crew. We have over 150 substitutes who, again, are our substitutes. We're not getting them through a service. We screen them, we hire them, and we bring them in and manage their work in-house. And then we also have independent contractors and volunteers that are associated with the work that we do here. So we have a number of categories of employment and service to the district.
Megan, can I interrupt you for just a couple questions?
I'm sorry, do you want to go back to it?
One, with the 1,500 plus employees, what's the breakdown LMEA, Lamosa? Do you know?
Pretty much the 75 would be Lamosa.
Lamosa.
And the balance is LMEA.
Oh, really? So the secretaries that are listed here would be LMEA,
Yep.
but aren't executive secretaries
They're
Lamosa?
included in the administrative staff count.
Oh, okay. And,
It does, I didn't list all of the job categories, but that would be included.
okay. And what are we paying substitutes right now?
What is substitute teachers? It's,
Is it 110?
no, I think it's 120.
It might be like, depending upon the category, if you're alumni, it's like 125, something
Right.
like 110 or 115, depending upon the category.
And are we having trouble? I hear anecdotally that we don't have enough substitutes.
We don't.
We don't. But that is true for everyone.
Yeah, it's not just a regional issue, it's a national issue. We just don't have enough people going into the profession.
And is the cost that is the amount that we pay a substitute a factor in that?
No, I think we're in line with everybody else.
And we recently
We
increased
just recently bumped it up.
Yeah.
I remember that we bumped it up, but maybe if we're ahead of everybody else, we get more substitutes,
Or we're just
paying more money
paying
for
more
some.
money for the
Yeah,
same food that we get. That's the dilemma that we have. It's a national. Here's what could help, and we've asked for that. If in Pennsylvania, in New York and in New Jersey, you can use retired teachers. It's made more difficult in Pennsylvania. They make it difficult for you to use retired teachers. Also, you have to be certificated in the area. In New Jersey, you simply need 120 hours of college. So they've made it more difficult than I think it should be.
Yeah. We continue to explore ways to supplement our substitute pool. There's a sort of an ongoing application for substitutes live on our system, and so we continue to search for ways to support. We've looked at companies to supplement, so we've been in that process as well.
And do we have a person assigned in each building to fill in?
Yes, we also have building substitutes that are regular sort of day-to-day subs that are building-based.
4 days.
Yeah, correct, so that they can fill in, but that's just, we now have 2 per building, but, during this time of year, sometimes they move into a long-term substitute position, and then we lose the ability to move them around day-to-day, but yes, we do have those individuals assigned at the building level.
So are
And they're
they,
paid at a different rate, too.
so are they LMEA?
No,
They're outside of,
correct.
but there are 2 people that just regularly happen to
Yes.
sub in that building, so they
That was
know the
another-
routines, they know the personnel. et cetera. And is that all the buildings or just the elementary buildings?
All the buildings.
And it's 2? So does it
Supposed to
vary by the
be.
population of the school?
No, it hasn't been changed. It was it was 2 years ago?
We
Yeah.
started it a couple of years
Years
ago.
ago.
We had 1, then I think
think
this
this
year
year
we
we
bumped it
added
up
2, yeah.
to 2. You're also taking people out of the sub pool, but you're getting, the benefit outweighs any other issue, but we're not necessarily replacing them with anybody else in the sub pool. So you could go to more.
Right.
And in the secondary level, the problem becomes the content area.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just seeing at the elementary level, the guarantee of regular work might be enough to keep,
It helps.
people on in our sub pool, and just I'm hearing, and it's very anecdotal, but reports of elementary school classrooms without it sub. That's kind of not good. So if there's things that we can do to prevent that.
Right. And just to
I
clarify,
understand-
there would be an adult in a classroom, like we'll move.
Yeah, we don't leave the
When you
kids
say- yeah.
jumping off the tables by themselves. But the high schools, I understand the content piece is the big obstacle. But in, elementary qualified people are more versatile that way. So,
So the subs, the first 35 days, they get paid 115. After that, it's 125, and alumni, it's 125 a day.
alumni means?
Retired.
Former employees.
Oh, former employees, okay.
Yeah.
Didn't we also write to Peasers at one point and basically say, since we're never fully staffed,
And identified a list of, yes.
we said to them, look, we've never been 100%. You have to show that you couldn't have filled the position any other way before you can use somebody who's retired. So I think we sent them something that says, here's our attendance list. We've never been 100% staffed, so we ought to be able to use our retired teachers.
And that gives us a handful.
And that gives
more,
us some.
yeah. So that's a challenge. An ongoing challenge that we continue to review and look for ways to improve. In terms of our staffing, a lot of it is dictated by formula and need, whether it be driven by class size guidelines, PDE guidelines, IEP requirements, the space that's in a bus to accommodate students, distance, square footage. So all of these things are numbers and data that we look at when we make staffing recommendations to you. We do know that we're a service industry, so a bulk of our budget is spent on salaries and benefits. Approximately 76% of the budgeted expenditures for next year reflect salary and benefit costs. There is an increase on salary. There is a slight decrease on the benefit side as compared to last year. So this is the reflection of the professional positions that, not a reflection, these are the professional positions that we're recommending for next year. And this chart is by level, indicating those additional staffing assignments that we're looking to fill, again, by school. Some of these, you'll note, are reflecting increases, meaning that this is an existing position that may be a part-time position that we're looking to increase based on student enrollment and needs. And there's also some of these requests or recommendations are based on projections. So that means that we may not need to move forward with those staffing needs, but based on what we're looking at in terms of the projections we received, we're anticipating a need to increase in those areas. So I wanted to highlight those, as well as The Now program and the communications lab that's at the middle school and high school level, we're looking to initiate similar programs at BC and, at Welsh Valley and Harriton. Those are BC LM specific programs now, and we're looking to expand into Welsh Valley and Harriton. And those are regular education intervention programs that support students in the regular education setting. While they are available to all students throughout the district, we're seeing a growing need that we feel is important to offer those also at Welsh Valley and Harriton at this point in time.
Just for people who are looking at this chart later, FTE means full-time equivalent?
Correct. Thank you. And these are our recommended staffing increases for support and administrative positions. And again, you'll see that the instructional aid at middle and high school is to support the new Now and communications programs at both of those schools. We looked at the drivers as well as the instructional aid, and looking to add a new position of a contract specialist to support the work that we do across our departments in business, technology, curriculum, and the need to help with identifying vendors, evaluating vendors, negotiating and drafting agreements that can then be processed through the business office and then recommended to you.
Megan, do you have any teachers in reserve for next year that, in the past we've had two, in the budget we have 2 additional teachers that we may or may not need, or is that all sort of incorporated into this?
Yeah, well, typically, I don't know that we use the term reserve. We've had based on projections and what we believe to be potential needs. So, for example, we believe that there are students that are transitioning from a middle school special education program into a high school special education program. They're still going to need that, but I mean that need could change in the transition planning process. So there are some things that are based on recommendations and
And projections.
projections.
But there's nothing, and I know what you mean, there's nothing like, our enrollment doesn't show that we need these 2 positions, but we're going to put them there just in case. We haven't done that.
No.
We can look at certain areas and say, we sure hope this breaks differently for us, and then we won't need that position. But we did not put 2 positions in just in reserve.
So, again, to just sort of reflect how we think about the staffing at an individual school level, you'll see what we had in 17-18. Again, looking into this year, the 18-19 highest projected enrollment was something we had our eye on as we staffed for this year, and 18-19, that middle band reflects the actual enrollment. So you'll see by looking at the totals, we were pretty close to that highest projected by being one off there. So you can see across the grade levels how those sections changed from 17-18 to 18-19. I think notably, you have 71 students in kindergarten in 17-18, and then all of a sudden in first grade we have 128 students. So, thinking about projections of 57 new first grade students in a building is a pretty big jump, but one that actually, that does happen when people think that where are 57 kids going to come from? They they come. And we have to be ready for that. And, we've seen the projections that we've been relying on, at least year to year, have been, pretty consistent with what we're seeing in the classroom. I think also a layer of importance is to look at, the representation of other sort of drivers of staffing, which is to ensure that students who are represented across the building with additional needs or plans or identifications are supported. And so these are, again, back to that compliance-driven formula we're looking at. You can see over half of the students have a need that we're looking to support that beyond a classroom teacher, that is a consideration as we look at staffing. And I took a look at some data around what's the impact of trauma, childhood trauma, and a recent, I should say in the last couple of years, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation did a study and reported that, basically 1 in 2 children will experience an adverse childhood incident during their childhood, which could be something like conflict in the home, parental conflict in the home, drug abuse, mental illness. There's a list of things that are considered adverse childhood experiences that, while it doesn't drive a specific formula for us, we know that it's out there, and we know that these are students that are being served, after, by our counselors, by our administrators, by our social workers, that don't fit into a particular mold. So I think it's important to just add that's a complexity to the students that we're seeing and the students who we are serving. And beyond that, I realize the font is pretty small here, but it shows, again, how we're serving in a lot of different areas the students and families of the community. And this is just a reflection of one elementary school and the needs that we serve there. And obviously, as you get to bigger and more complex schools, like a middle and high school, you have additional level of service and expertise and experience that add to the mix. And then finally, just a closer look at HR in our department. Responsibilities include recruiting, hiring, and onboarding, compliance responsibilities and investigations across the ADA, FMLA. We are, responsible for interpreting the contract and the grievance processing, benefits management, which is a pretty substantial piece of work and that we do to serve our employees, payroll processing, which we work closely with the business department, substitute coordination, that's all coming out of HR, pre-employment and volunteer mandated background screening. So that's our clearances that are required for all of those individuals that we talked about, the 1,500 plus employees, as well as our substitutes, et cetera. There's the 3 background clearance requirements. In addition to that, we have an Act 168 requirement, which means that for all of our employees, we're asking basically anyone that they've ever worked for whether they've been disciplined or dismissed for reasons that relate to interactions with children, basically. So that's another layer of compliance that we are processing within the district. And then other reporting obligations. So that's a little high-level summary of the work. And then our hiring process, again, we have with the employees that we have, the substitutes that we hire, the long-term substitutes that we hire, This is something that happens year-round. We have active postings. I can't think of a time when we haven't had an active posting for something. We review it through our web-based system. We organize interviews, screening level interviews, usually the process for employees that are hired as a long-term sub or a full-time employment, a contract, involve at least 3 levels of review. Mr. Copeland meets with all of our teachers before they are recommended to you. So it's a rigorous process, one that we think, can always be fine-tuned, but we feel that that we do our best to make sure that we're bringing the best candidates to you for final approval. And beyond that, I'm not sure if this is non sequitur, but it is another piece of the puzzle as it relates to the staffing and enrollment, is the partner school program that we have in place. This is the 3rd year. It has helped in several ways for us to be more predictable about our staffing needs before the end of this year, which helps with the hiring and placement process. It also helps to, again, where there's a section of students that is full, we have the flexibility to assign new students to another elementary school in the district that can accommodate that student. Again, from a staffing standpoint only, it does help to manage the need to add staff in late August or September when it's not an ideal time to do so. So we are satisfied that this program is helping to manage the enrollment and at the same time help manage the staffing piece of that as well. So, any questions?
One in particular, again, same thing that I asked George. Could we see an idea of last year's budget to this year's budget, where the changes are, and to point out specifically if there's big changes, what the answer is? I mean, one thing that you mentioned up above was that our benefits number is actually going down, even though our personnel is going up. So, it might be good to understand that why that's happening. But so you have a total on this side. I don't know what number it is, but you have a total for next year. We don't know what, we don't have in front of us what it was for last year. So if we could just get sort of, and a certain amount of breakout as well. How much is classroom staff? How much is other staff? Transportation staff? I mean, I'd just like to get a sense of where we are and where the changes are. You got a question?
Well, in the budget I think the presentation on Monday, we have entered the categories, salaries and benefits. You'll see that. The one issue is going to be when you look at last year's numbers, you got to remember there wasn't a contract in place at the time. So when you're doing the 1920s, the first year in 2 or 3 years, we actually know what people's salaries are going to be. So it's going to not really give you a clear picture because it was based upon numbers that weren't finalized at the time. So that you're aware of that. So it's not going to be, you're not really going to get what I think you're looking for. But we can show you numbers in whole, but it's.
You could probably look at actual, like last year's, they said, I guess, expenditures in the categories.
Yeah, but it's No, because
Too
in
fluid.
the 1920 budget, it's not the same people. We
Yeah.
have people coming, there's so much turnover, it's just not. I mean, we can show you what last year's numbers are, what is budgeted versus this year, and that's what you'll see when we do the presentation on Monday, which we show. But again, it's going to be,
It's not going to tell the.
it's not to the whole, it's not to the true story.
Okay.
Is the issue like if a teacher retires at the top of the grade, top of the scale, but we replace with someone middle, you'd see a decrease, but we didn't lose an employee. We just substituted out a retiring teacher at the higher grades.
Correct. The actual numbers will reflect something like that. What I'm saying is in the budget for the current year, the contract wasn't in place, so we use what, we put in the budget, and now we're doing the 1920 budget. We have a contract, so we know Master Step 1 is X amount of dollars. We know exactly what the numbers are. When we did the 18-19, even the 17-18, we were just using, where we, projections.
Right, and Ben, the issue that you raise is one that we always encounter is, when people move in and out of the scale, how that affects. I just in terms of budgeting, I like to see where we were last year, what we budgeted last year, what we spent last year, and obviously we don't know all of our expenses for this current year because we're not done it yet. But, and then what we're recommending that we budget for next year. We do it frequently. You do it in your regular presentation on Monday night. We often see it broken down a little bit more in these meetings. I just think it's helpful. So basically, on this chart where it has your projected personnel needs driven by enrollment, growth, blah, 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 there's 2 pages of additional staff. That's going to have an impact on the budget, clearly. This is the explanation, but it's not, I can't see in this presentation the actual impact. So I think you understand what I'm asking for, yes?
How much more was budgeted in order to support the proposed new employees? So how did we budget for that? I think we.
I'll put it together and see if that.
Yep.
Any other questions from board members? No public here? Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. The final meeting is in May? Anybody know?
May
the date?
15th.
May 15th. And
Curriculum.
Okay, and we also have a special Finance Committee meeting on May 9th, and that will be to discuss the issues around bonding and
Around the new middle school.
around the new middle school, but that one will not be televised.
Right, it's just a regular.
It's a regular Finance Committee. So with that, thank you very much. We are adjourned.